Hey, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm I'm pretty good. So for everybody who's listening and watching, this is my big sister, the OG. Uh, I guess you'd say like, I guess you'd say like honestly like my second mom. Pretty much helped me raise me to be the man that I am. Hopefully I made you somewhat proud. So t today I do make you proud, maybe. I hope. But do me a favor, can you introduce yourself, name, age, where you're from, relationship status, and how many kids you got?
That's a lot to remember, but I'm Jaquetta Lawson Smith still. I'm 40. I'm from Stockton, California, but I live in ATL and um I'm legally married, and I'll just put a point in that, legally married, and then I have 7 children.
Seven children. So a couple things I'm gonna tackle before we get into your story about your intro. So I know you said you're from Stockton, which is crazy because we all say that we're from Stockton, but we spent so much time in North Carolina. Why do you not say you're from North Carolina?
I was not born there, and honestly, like, even if I were to go to California today, like, I would still feel like it's home. Like, I would still feel that feeling of like home, because so much of my like most fond memories with people I love, family members and things, they were there. And that's where I was born. That's where I feel like being there shaped me more than being in North Carolina. Being in North Carolina was, at first, it was huge culture shock, and then, like, after being there for such a long time, like, I did like form bonds with people, but I still never felt that feeling of like home. I always felt like I needed to leave North Carolina to find that feeling of home. Like, I just never connected with it like that. Like, I'm not saying it's a horrible place. I love going to North Carolina. I feel like it has some beautiful places. It has some of the best food. Some of the best people I've met in life I've met there, but I just don't feel that feeling of home when I go there,
I
when
can
I'm
attest to
there.
that because like even me, like being born in Alaska, and then like the earlier years of my life being raised in California. I feel like California was like it built the foundation of who I was. And then even when I went to North Carolina, like same like you said, like I went to North Carolina, I built relationships and you know, I spent a lot of time out there. I felt like that I was there, but I wasn't the same still. Even no matter how long I was there, I always felt like I wasn't like I never felt like the country boy or like, I was always felt like a city boy, like, like I was always visiting. Like so I could understand that. The other thing I was going to tackle on there is you said that you had 7 kids. So if you recall, when we were younger, mom said that she had 7 kids, so we all owed her 7 kids. How do you feel being the only one so far who's reached that goal?
Like, I'm a lunatic. If I'm being completely transparent, I didn't want to have kids. I never wanted to have kids or be married just off of like life experiences. So I was just like, oh, yeah, that's not for me. And when I used to teach at the Boys and Girls Club, I used to, say it all the time. Still to this day, like, some of my kids, they'll hit me up like, Miss J, you said you didn't want to have kids. You had another one? Like, and I'm like, look, I'm just as shocked as you are. But in all seriousness, like, I feel like I was made to have all these children. It was just the selfishness within myself of wanting that. I didn't want to have to be like mom, where so much of your time is taken up by like your children. I didn't want to lead them down the wrong path. I didn't want any of that load, but I feel like, just with my nature, just how I am, I was kind of like made to be able to take care of this many children. So now I'm cool with it. It's like, I feel like it was what I was made to be able to do, but Initially, I was like, yeah, that's not going to be me. Whenever she would say that, I'm like, yeah, she's talking to the other children because that's not going to be me. Like, I might adopt a kid when I'm like 40 something. Like, this, like, I had it all planned out in my head, but I thought it was going to be like the cool, rich aunt and, um, everybody come visit me with their kids. But God thought that was hilarious. And he was like, no,
Jokes.
you're the one. You're going to be the sister with all the kids. It's going to be you. So here we
Yeah.
are.
I do remember growing up, you saying that multiple times that you didn't want kids. And then what was really crazy was I don't think I ever actually said that I don't want kids. I just remember that I used to say that I wasn't going to have seven kids. And then I ended up having the first kid. Um,
Right.
but so let's take it back to California, right? Well, also, you didn't answer the one question about growing up in a two-parent whole household.
Oh, I forgot about that. Off and on. So we had two stepdads. So when our mom was married, we had a two-parent household. And then, when she was single, she was a single mom. So I've experienced both sides of the spectrum. And that
In your opinion, growing up, because obviously she was married to my biological father, and then she was married to our younger sibling's biological father. Um, did you prefer it, truthfully, did you prefer it to be having the two-parent household, or did you prefer it like it better with the single mom?
Since I was so young when mom was married to your dad, of course I wanted like I at first I liked the dynamics of like having a dad and not being the kid without a dad in class and everything because since we lived on base, like most of those people like they had a dad. Like most of
Yeah.
my classmates, they were in a two-parent home. Like there weren't many single family single parent homes there, so to not be the oddball out felt good. But when things were tumultuous, I used to always wish like we could just go elsewhere or he would go away or
Yeah,
there's something. When things were tumultuous, I wish that a lot.
I got you. Um, so when we were living on base, it was just the three of us, correct? Me, you, and then our sister Nay, correct?
um and
I was
then
very young, that's why I'm asking. I can't remember too much.
well, then Juju was born. Like that was traumatic when he was born and the twin died. We were all on base at that time, so he was there as a baby. So it was four of us.
Um, as a big sister to three little siblings at that age, do you recall like how you felt to being a big sister?
Yeah, it was a lot of stuff that transpired that I had to like I had to take the brunt for you guys. So it was pretty rough.
Like what's something you remember that you had to take the brunt for?
Like our uncle wasn't that nice. If I could just put it frankly, he just wasn't that nice. And, to keep you guys from dealing with a lot of the stuff that happened that you guys don't know about, I just took the brunt of it.
Okay. Well, do you think that those experiences back then, those have helped you with like your children now, like raising them? Because obviously you have you have two daughter, not two daughters. You have an older son who's the oldest, and then you have a daughter who's also a big sister to her little sister. When it comes to like teaching them, how to handle their younger siblings, do you think that those experiences back then, like you can make it to where you can, I guess you could say like relate to them and guide them better
Oh, absolutely.
versus if you were like the baby sister or
Absolutely, because when you're the oldest, you experience a different dynamic of being a child. Like you don't experience like the full freedom of childhood, if I'm just being transparent. So,
we're gonna get to
um,
that.
like when if I were to have been like say our sister Nub, who's the youngest, and I'm like having kids and trying to tell them like, well, this is how you should be. Like I could tell them from like an aerial view type of guidance, but to be able to tell them like details or tell them what to avoid or how to communicate things better, I would lack some of that just because I've never experienced it. So I feel like how I'm able to guide them and like maneuver situations with them between older siblings and younger siblings is in part like wholly
Right.
from me being the oldest.
Okay. And then your relationship with mom, because obviously, like us older three, we were back to back to back, so you really didn't get to have that, I guess you could say that time where it's just you and mom, where some kids they get that, or like, like for instance, like me, I was the baby for, 3, 4 years, about 4 years, before Jude came along. So I guess you could say that I was babied and I got that, mom son time. Do you feel like that you didn't really get to have that experience, or do you feel like mom did a, acceptable job to where you never actually noticed anything different?
No, I felt like that. I felt like that for a long time actually. Because like the kids just didn't stop. Like they kept coming even into my adulthood. So like yeah, I did feel like that. Um for a while, a long time.
In what ways do you think that affected you with your mothering?
It made me be very, very cognizant of like taking the time to learn each of my children and how they need for me to interact with them and show up with them and pull them aside for that separate time. It made me keep that in the forefront of my mind.
Okay. Now, not to kind of like jump off topic, but I know earlier we were talking about how you said you didn't want kids. Do you think that you not wanting to have kids came from you being the older sibling and not having that relationship between you and your mom?
Yeah, I didn't want to. I felt like I had already raised kids, so I felt like what was the purpose in having my own when I already had y'all? And that was the number one. And then number two is just like parenting doesn't come with like a set of like guidelines or like rules, and you don't know what kind of child you're gonna have. And I was like, what if I mess up? Like
Yeah.
I don't want, and you know me, I don't like to fail at anything, and I'm a perfectionist. So I was like, if I don't have children, I can control the outcome. No children, I'm not messing anybody up. I'm not messing up with that. So it was those two factors that made me say, yeah, I'm good. Like I'm good on it. I don't need those.
So before we get into like your friends and stuff like that, when it comes to the siblings, how do you think that we would describe you as a big sister growing up, like in the younger years?
A jerk. Probably a jerk. Like I I was tough on everybody. And over the years I did learn to not be so matter of fact and not be so straight to the point or harsh in the way that I delivered things. But honestly, when I was younger, my mindset was, oh, I need to protect them. I'm the oldest. Like if they're unprotected, that's on me. And some of the ways that I went about that was wrong.
I
I
don't
didn't.
think so. Let me speak as your younger brother. I'll say for me, because I feel like I have a slightly different perspective. Just because if you recall when we were younger, me, you, Nay, and Drew, we got separated a little bit whenever they went to North Carolina with mom first, and then me and you stayed with grandma in California. I felt like if I had to describe you in one word, you already said it, protector. Because I can recall multiple situations where me as just being a young boy trying to do things like, climbing on top of the roof of grandma's house, you would be on my ass about that. or like, taunt when we used to do the kids on track running and we would taunt that Doberman Pinscher every day. And you would tell us, like, you tell me, well, tell us all the time, like, one day that thing gonna get out. And sure enough, it did. Things like that. And then like even at school, like when the kids would pick on like Nay and then you slap that girl, protecting her. You always were, there to protect us. Like you were like that people always be like, I'm gonna go get my big brother. We would always be like, I'm gonna go get my big sister. And it didn't help that for some reason you were always bigger than us. Like we were like really little. Like me and Nay were like real. I was short, Nay was small, but then you were kind of always like the thick brolic sister. Like and I don't know, it was weird. Like I remember in high school and I was about to I don't know if you remember this, when I was about to get into it with this dude on the bus, and then you ended up hitting him. You know, I ain't gonna say his name. Rest in peace to him. But you know, so I would describe you as a protector for sure. And I think that I guess while I have you on here, I give you your flowers. Honestly, you're not perfect. We've all between siblings, we've all had our run-ins and fallouts and stuff like that. But you've always, I felt like you've always put us above like yourself till you got your kids. I feel like but that changed, and that's like a, you know, uh, natural thing. But I think before your kids, like you literally always was there for all of us. It might not be in the way that we wanted it to be, but you were there when it counted. We could call you, we could talk to you. You always kept try to keep us, like I said, until you got your kids. You'd always try to keep us with us. Like, you were never really that sister who was like, that older sibling who like, oh, you're my little brother, get away. You always was cool with like, okay, yeah, you want to come? Yeah, come on. You want to ride with me to the store? You want to go with me here? I was always able to go. Obviously until you started hanging out with like your friends, and y'all was going to do like girl teenage stuff, and I didn't really want to do that. But for the most part, I felt like you were a protector, and you just always kept us around, showing us, and you never got into trouble, too much trouble. So like it kind of gave us some kind of guidance. I feel like, to especially like I even say like with Jew, like you know what? And I don't want to go on a long tangent. I just want to kind of give you your flowers while we're here. Uh, like it's like you're almost like you were our second mom because literally, if you think about just different situations, and I'm not going to mention them because it's kind of like some of them are personal, but like you could tell when one of us needed you, and you would take us under your wing. Like, I'll say a name, but I'm not gonna say a situation. Like with Jew when he was in high school, you at that point you guys were really close, and you had him under your wing, and you were just like always like on him, like trying to like guide him, trying to like, be a big sister to him. And then he had his situation. You know, when I first had my oldest child, you were always like right there, always, talking to me, always making sure that I was good, helping me out with her, stuff like that. And then so on and so forth. So I feel like subconsciously you were like our second mom, and you were like the mom that we could just openly be and relate to, So big shout out to you for that. So moving on, into school, how would you describe school for you?
Like high school or college?
Oh, let's
Like
start with
high
high school.
school?
Yeah, let's start
High
with high school.
school? It was okay. I mean, I have some great memories, but like I maybe it's the Pisces in me. I went into high school with like this like 90s sitcom uh clueless type thinking of how school was gonna be, or Lizzie McGuire, I don't know. But it was vastly different because we lived in the country, and our parents were strict, so like a lot of stuff I didn't get to do or like go and participate in. So um I guess I had to mourn like the facade of what I wanted it to be in my head while I was in high school. So it did kind of, I always would think like I can't wait to be done with this. Like it is what it is. Like it's not, it wasn't, I guess I had hyped it up so much in my head of what it was going to be that whenever I actually got in high school, it was like lackluster. But I had some great times. I made great memories. I met wonderful people, and and I really do appreciate that. I mean, so many people that um said thing, teachers, other students, some that are still living, some that aren't, that have made huge impressions on my life. And so I mean, it wasn't a bad experience. It was just like I got so far in my head about it in like middle school and elementary school that it was just having to bring myself back to reality. But I mean, it was pretty cool. I mean,
Now, you played sports in school, basketball. Y'all were state champions. Shout out to you for that. A lot of people can't say that. Even me, I can't say that I was ever a state champion or anything like that. Um, but then you were good on the basketball court, but you also were like a phenomenal student. Um, how did you balance the both? And then on top of being, a big sister, how did you, juggle it all and make it all work?
you know that meme where the person is like, I'm struggling mentally. No, but no, like honestly, um, just my personality type. Like my personality type is lace up your bootstraps, get it done. And I don't like to do things subparly or half tell anything. So that's how I was able to get it all done because I mean, I worked, I was in clubs, I did basketball, I did track, um, I did, I was like in Beta Club and the National Honor Society, and it's because I always like strive to be the best me I could be, which I still do that to this day, but I've learned to give myself more grace. Back then, I didn't give myself any grace. Like the morning talks I would have with myself, like, you're tired. Who cares? Nobody's gonna care about you being tired. Nobody, get your backpack, do your work, like, go wash those dishes. Like, I just used to have these, like, internal monologues with myself on, like, nobody's gonna remember second best. They're
Yeah.
gonna remember first place. Get her done. Like that's how I talk to myself. So I feel like that really attributed to being able to like be there for you guys, help mom out, do my chores, do all the homework I had because I was in honors classes. So we had like significantly more homework, be in all the clubs, go to work, do all the sports. Literally talking to myself like uh Talladega Nights, if I'm being honest. Like,
And then you forgot one other thing too that was a stressor too, then balancing in church. Because we did so many different things with church. Um, speaking of church, describe church for you. How did you perceive church? I'm not necessarily saying a specific church, but just like the going to church and being involved in the church. How was that for you? How did that shape you?
so I felt like at a young age, back even when we used to go to church in Alaska,
Mm.
I used to always think, is this how it's really supposed to be? Because how are people willingly signing up for this? And like, where, like I had so many questions from a young age. And I had a lot of my questions were valid questions. Like, for instance, I would say they would always say, praise God, worship God, and I would ask literally, what's the difference? And I would just get some like blanket answer that gave me no guidance. And having those kind of encounters over and over again, I just felt lost and I felt like there's no way I'm making it in because I don't know anything. And like when I was being a kid and like I'm reading the Bible And of course, all the Bibles we had were King James version. And I'm like, thee, thou, thouist, and all this. I'm like, none. This is all gibberish. I don't see how this is applying to the life I'm living right now. And none of the people who are that I'm like asking questions to can give me an answer. So what do they know? And if they don't know, why are they leading me? Like, so these are the kind of questions I used to have tolling around in my mind all the way back from Alaska. And it just progressively became more traumatic and more um like something I didn't want to be a part of as I got older and we went to church in
Did those
California
questions ever get answered for you?
by myself.
Okay. Um, so for me, when you say worship God and praise God, that question specifically, what answer did you come up with for that?
Like praising God is more of like um I'll give you this example. When someone's about to come to stage and they're hyping them up. They're like, world's best, da 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 da. This person has done this, this, and this, and this, and you're so enthusiastic and you're lifting, you're really like exhorting them before they come to to the stage. I would say that's like praising God. That's like when you're praising God, you're doing something like that. When you're
Almost like in these days when they say, like how I said earlier, like giving him his flowers.
yeah, absolutely. And then you're like really enthusiastic. You mean you're like, your body's into it. Some people jump around, some people are like clap, sing songs, and it could be like David in the Bible, dance around. That's to me praising. Worshiping God is more so, I feel like it comes more so after his spirit kind of comes. So it's like if you were introducing someone, you're praising them, giving them their praises, they come on the stage. Liken that to you're giving God all these praises and then his spirit comes in. And then once his spirit is there, that's when you can like you start to feel his spirit. You can quiet down and you can like soak in. Worshiping is more so not really words, it's really soaking in or just like feeling God's spirit surrounding you. And this the as the Bible says, like he made us in his image, which means we already have God's spirit in all of us. It's like that spirit that of him that's already in us connecting with the external spirit of God.
The last question I'm gonna ask you about church is just as somebody who grew up in old school style church religion, right? Um, but you're also still young enough to be a part of this new style of religion. Do you feel like one is better than the other, or do you feel like that both serve a purpose and that you really you need a little bit of both?
I feel like um I feel like some of the old school stuff serves a purpose, but I'm not a believer in religion, and that's the problem. A lot of the old school stuff is based in pure, a lot of the new stuff too, based in pure religion only. And honestly, I feel like religion was created to keep people separated because, of course, there's power in numbers.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of that is just man-made stuff, and so it has no place really to be in the church. As far as the new stuff, I feel like they could do well with taking some notes from the reserve that the old school stuff had, because there does need to be some kind of like balance, because it's not like you're dealing with any like Tom, Dick, or Harry. Like this
Yeah.
is God, like the creator of all things, so you gotta have some sort of like level of reverence in a church setting. But personally, I don't subscribe to religion. Like when people ask me, I always say I believe myself to be an omnist or something like that. But yeah, I feel like you you got to toe the line in the middle of old and new. But I feel like the old stuff is quite traumatizing. But then again, you got to think what worked back then worked for them because of how the people work.
Yeah.
Like old religion, like you got to remember, like when that old religion, old school church came about, like these people were fresh out of slavery. Like these people were like new into like freedom and learning how to read and being able to freely read whatever they wanted to read. And so in order for them to be able to assimilate to it, I feel like they needed to have like the strictness because that's what they were used to. And I feel like as people have become more free and more liberated, so has like the presentation of church overall.
So you would say that religion should probably progress with society, basically. Like,
I mean, I feel like religion does progress with society, does what I believe everyone needs, which is relationship. I feel like relationship should be, of course, progressive, but it should have like a steady foundation and be pretty steady, not a roller coaster, you know?
okay. All right, so before we move into the adult part of your story, obviously, you know, the premise of my podcast is to inspire, encourage, and motivate other people to keep going. And it is a mental health based podcast. So reflecting back on uh, early childhood to graduation of high school, um, what's one thing that, like one traumatic thing that you went through, and how did you get through it? And what advice would you give to somebody who was going through something similar to that?
Um, I mean, I encountered quite a bit of traumatic stuff, but I would say,
What sticks out what's the one that sticks out the most to you that you feel like affected you the most and that you learned that, you know, that's kind of shaped you into who you are now?
all
Like,
my encounters with our uncle, all of them were
Uncle,
traumatizing. All of them. Um, it's so much that just I'm not ready to speak about publicly, but that I endured. But all of my encounters with him were very traumatic, and I feel like they progressively got more traumatic um, over time. Like and a lot of stuff that sorry.
for all you guys who are viewing this episode while she's getting herself together, if you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on Instagram at Minority Emotions underscore VDP, on TikTok at Minority Emotions. All right, Clara. So yeah, it's okay to take an intermission sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, pick up where you want to pick up at.
Back to like just being traumatized by our uncle. It was just so much stuff that transpired and uh to keep you guys safe. And I just took it and I was okay with it, but I wasn't. I wasn't.
Did you ever have to go to any kind of therapy or anything like that?
Eventually I did at first. Um, so I don't know if you know, but like sometimes with the mind, when you like start to endure like a series of traumatic events that are similar, sometimes the brain will just suppress it so far down that you forget a lot of details. Like you remember like the base or the premise of what happened, but like big details or like things like that you don't remember until something triggers it. And thankfully I experienced that, which I feel like attributed to me being able to you know go on with life and get through life without succumbing to any of the crazy thoughts I used to have in my head. And but yeah, I would say
What? What?
I would say trauma has a weird way of like um coming back up on you at the weirdest time. And I remember being pregnant with my fourth child, and so so much stuff was going on, and I just started having like this crazy asthma attack. Well, I thought it was an asthma attack, so I went to the doctor for a breathing treatment. Come to find out, I'm having an anxiety attack, and so then they signed me up right then for to start coming there, and I used to go every week for therapy, and it was pretty helpful, but I only like scratched the surface because at the time that's all that I could really remember. And but it helped. It did help. And over time, I went to therapy again. I had to. After I had my last son, I did therapy, and I was able to go deeper. By then I had already started using some of the stuff that I learned in school to try to dredge the stuff up so I can start to deal with it and move past it. But like working with my last therapist, I was able to really go a bit deeper and really work on that stuff to try to put it all behind me. It's never gonna it That's the thing. um with some trauma, it never really fully goes away. You just release enough of it to where it's no longer affecting your body or your mind or your emotional health and stuff like that.
Yep. And so what kind of advice would you give to somebody who might be, going through something similar and they're not able, like for instance, like somebody who's going through something, whether it's past or present, and they're not at a point where they're able to talk about it yet, openly talk about it. How would you tell them to, what kind of advice would you give them to like, to get through it, to, to live with it, et cetera?
I don't feel like you would do yourself any justice trying to just live with it. Um, it doesn't matter what age you're at or what stage you are in life. Like it doesn't matter what you think someone else is going to say or how they're going to perceive it, or if you think they're going to think you're lying or anything like that. It's better to, even if you can't verbalize it, it's better to at least write it and like give it to someone that you trust or someone that you know should be protecting you. um just because you really never know what to transpire until you're in the situation. Um, and I know like a lot of stuff I just took on the chin because I was just like, well, I know how this is gonna go. Like, mom would get upset, then who's gonna watch it? Like she'll get upset and like uh she may get locked up or something, and then who's gonna watch us? Like I just gotta take this one for the team. And that's not the right approach. Like you don't have to take things for the team. You don't have to push it so far down that you act like it doesn't exist. Like you can tell someone, even if you don't tell them all the details. You can tell them, this is what I'm struggling with. I'm trusting you to be my safe place. First ask them like if if they're open and willing to be a safe place for you. And then if you can't verbally speak it out, at least write it to them and say, I'm trusting you to be my safe space. This is what I'm dealing with. You don't have to give me any, if you don't want any advice, or you just need someone to know, or you just need someone to sit with you, or you can just verbalize that. Oftentimes I feel like when you go through different traumatic experiences as people, you don't want to burden other people. and then you don't want to make your pain someone else's responsibility. But the truth of the matter is, when you're telling people, you're not actually making it their responsibility. You're just seeing if they have the bandwidth to hold space for you to get it off your plate a little bit. They don't even have to give you advice, they don't have to give you guidance. They can literally just know, or they can just sit with you in silence. They don't have to bear the responsibility of trying to avenge you and vindicate your wrongs or make you feel better or boost you up. They don't have to do that.
Yeah.
And it's better to just get some of that stuff off you, because life can be traumatizing. Just little things can be traumatizing, devoting yourself to a job and then them saying, oh, we don't need you anymore. That's traumatizing. Being married and then the person just saying, well, I want to be free. That's traumatizing. Like losing a child. It's trauma. Life is traumatizing. So whatever you can do to alleviate some of that trauma by finding someone that can be your safe place, or even if you're just journaling, do it. I mean, I was dealing with postpartum depression really, really bad in 2023. I was struggling heavy, and before I got into therapy, that's what I was doing. I
What would you say is more beneficial, uh, um, or productive? Having a therapist, having a support system of your peers of your choice, or having a healthy, outlet of like writing and journaling.
Honestly, I feel like you need all of them, but because of sometimes when you're going through things or you're dealing with things or you need to like be accountable for things or take responsibility for things or get something that happened to you that was just wrong off of you, you're not fully, sometimes it's hard for people to be fully honest with themselves. So yeah, you can write, and if you're writing unprompted, you're just writing out, what you think,
Yeah.
which could be, many holes in the story. Or even like the journals I made, they have prompts in them. Even while you're answering the prompts, you can still leave stuff out. And then if you have, you're relying on your peers, especially if they're of your choosing, you don't know if they're being your yes men or not, and you don't know if they're gonna be, okay with confronting things that are going awry with you. And so I feel like having a combination works, because generally a therapist, they don't know you from the next person on the street. So when they're listening to you and they're assessing you, like, they're unbiased. They have no emotional connection to you. They've heard stories like yours a billion times. So it's not like your story is so unique that they're just going to automatically connect with you, and you're going to be in their heart. And now they just, going to cry over you at night or anything. Like, so I feel like you need that unbiased person, that person that's like emotionally detached from you, to be able to show you yourself and show you ways to move. And then you need your friends to help you on those days when, you know, your therapist kicks your butt and, and,
Because
and you need a pick-up.
I interviewed a man recently, and he was talking about therapy, and he said that when approaching therapy, you need to figure out first, you need to figure out what you're looking for from a therapist. Even though they're unbiased, you need to find out, are you looking for someone to fix you? Are you looking for someone who you can just trauma dump onto? Like just figure out before you go. Therapy's not going to be beneficial, basically, what you're saying, unless you figure out what you're looking for from this therapist first. So
Yeah.
me personally, I've never been to therapy. Um, I've had multiple different types of support system from, relatives to friends, to, just acquaintances to just all kind of different people. I feel like I have a good support system now. Um, and then journaling, I totally agree with you on journaling that you're writing down sometimes when you're writing for me, I'll speak for me. I feel like when I write, sometimes if I was to start writing, like I'm not going to be 100% honest, right? With myself because when you start to write it, and then you start to think, and you're like, oh, that sounds stupid, so I'm not gonna write that. Or if someone ever reads this, they're gonna judge me. If it somehow is to get out. So then you kind of like erase it, or you just kind of like don't write it. You know, you start judging yourself, which could be good if you know how to process that. It's like you become your own therapist through journaling. So I totally agree that all three are important. Me personally, for me, I feel like you should just have to figure out which one works the best for you, though, uh, because if you're somebody who has trust issues, then maybe a support system might not be the best for you because you're never going to truly open up. And then also, like you said, if your support system is yes men or yes women, just yes people, then they're doing you no good. Because I talked about an episode previously, where I talked about how you have to be willing to say the things that people don't want to hear. And as a support system, somebody in a support system, you have to also understand what kind of support that person needs from you. Meaning, like, maybe they don't always need advice. Maybe they just need somebody to listen to. And then you start offering your advice, and then now they close up to you because you didn't understand what they needed from in the moment. So it takes a communication as well. So um, then also, just because where there's good, where there's bad, there's also good. What's something like one of your best memories that you have as a kid? From like I said, from as a young woman or a young kid to becoming a young woman, excluding childbirth.
That's I mean, seeing my kids was great, but childbirth was not great. Like
Well, not not
anybody
not
that said
childbirth. I'm
it.
not saying like child. I'm saying before you had children, up until the point before you had children. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
okay. I was just being joking around. I actually was just talking to some of our other siblings about this the other day. Um, when we lived in North Carolina and we would sit at the table like and we would play like those different games like the cup game and we would play telephone and someone would always say something completely wild that had nothing to do with what was said and like we would just sit there at the table for hours just hanging out with each other laughing and like making memories and we would tell each other jokes or we would just sit there and like crack on each other for hours and I mean we could have been outside, we could have been in our rooms, we could have been doing anything, but we were just sitting around the table and I mean, I know probably now listening back, it's like, oh my God, they're so lame. But like to me, it was just such fun times. Like we playing charades and hangman, and I don't know why we were always at the table, but we were at the table a lot. And we made a lot of good memories there. Like we weren't eating or anything. We were just there playing games. And it wasn't like board games all the time. It was just stuff we were making up and just having a good time being kids.
I do recall those same times. Now we're going to talk about you transition into you becoming a mom, your adult life, and all that kind of stuff. So what what kind of thoughts and kind of emotions did you experience when you found out coming from somebody who didn't want children at all, when you found out that you were pregnant with your oldest?
I was embarrassed.
Why is that?
That was my most felt emotion. Embarrassment, number one. And then secondly, I immediately felt like um I had to get all my ducks in a row. I had to create a new plan on life. I needed to create like a new action plan. I gave myself like dates to have things done. Those immediately. Like I
So let me ask you this. Never did it cross your mind because you were somebody who didn't want children, never did it cross your mind to like for like abortion or anything like that?
know because I remember I think I may have been 10, 11, maybe. And I was having a conversation with Grandma, Gran, and Nana. And they were talking about Nana not being able to have kids and how hard it was, and how hard it was for Grandma to have kids and like to keep the kids alive and things. And um, how they were just like really talking about how even with them being elderly at the time and having grandchildren and stuff like that, it still affected them. Like that made me feel like it would be wrong and disrespectful to the struggles that they went to even think about getting rid of a child when they wanted children so badly. Um, because Nana ultimately had to end up adopting because she literally couldn't have children. So that was one thing. And then like at the time I was still heavily connected to like religion and like still heavily connected to church and stuff like that. And so I was like, abortion is wrong and like in my mind it was just like, oh no, that's a sin that I can control, that I don't need to put on my tally of sins that I've committed. I could just go ahead and make sure that one's not on there. But the overwhelming feeling was like they would be so hurt, or like just hearing the hurt and like the struggles I went through, it just made me feel like I would be disrespecting all that they went through for me to even be here. You know what I'm saying? For me to even be able to be a person, it would be disrespectful for me to just say, "Oh, well, I didn't have to go through that struggle. Let me just get rid of this baby."
So whenever you found out that you were having a son, um, and your first child's gonna be a son, was there any kind of fear that you felt, knowing that you were gonna be having to raise a boy in, today's society?
Um, yeah, like my overwhelming fear was the fact that he would be black. He would eventually grow up to be a black man and in this world, and that was just, it was very scary. If I'm being honest, it still is. Like it's still something that lingers in the back of my mind. Like he's a black man. Nobody's going to be like, by looking at him, and this is what I was thinking when I was pregnant with him, nobody by looking at my child is going to know like he's kind, he's raised well, he's mannerable, he's funny, like he's not disrespectful, he's not a threat to anyone else. Nobody by looking at him is going to know that. Only someone that knows him would know that. But there are individuals in this world who, no matter how kind-hearted he is, what he's been through, they're just gonna see him as a black man and he's a threat. And that freaked me out. That was like this big looming cloud over, like once I finally accepted like, okay, I'm gonna have a baby. And I started to get over being embarrassed. That was like the next gray cloud that came flying in on my blue sky.
So, what kind of things do you think that you had to prepare, like for yourself to kind of like raise him to be, obviously you have to protect him. Like, what kind of things did you have to like just kind of like mentally do to be like, okay, like how you just said, like, I'm about to raise a son. He's about to be a black man in America. And all the things you just listed, like what kind of things did you have to do to kind of like prepare yourself to for that?
Just face reality. I feel like a lot of people like to live in this rose colored glasses type phase of life all the time, where they feel like that's not an issue, where they feel like there's no disparities between different races and throughout the world, and there is. And I had to just come, and for so long I had just kind of, it's like I knew it was there, I experienced different things, but I kind of like made myself oblivious to it because I was like, you know I'm a woman. So like when you're a woman, it's like it's a man's world. They make the rules to cater to themselves, and all the stuff that is done is for catering to men. And so I was like, I can fly under the radar, but you have to like fully become aware of the radar and like prepare this other human being for an experience you will never experience. And so I had to just take the rose colored glasses off and get real with myself. Like, this is how it really is. This is what really goes on. And so then that way I can prepare him. I can prepare uh, him to be something I will never be. I'll never be a black man. I'm a black woman, and I feel like black men get treated better than black women in the world. But I feel like black men are just seen differently. So
Before we
yeah,
progress, I want to ask about that. Why do you feel that black men get treated better than black women?
because they're men. That's all.
Okay.
Just because they're men.
So you think that we both get treated, I want to say
Subparly.
subparly, but you guys get a little bit worse because of the fact that you have the female dynamic as well. Okay,
Yeah.
I see your point there. Now, it's up to you if you want to talk about this, but I'm going to ask. Um, so when you were pregnant with your oldest son, and then he was born, um, what kind of dynamic did his father play in that role? His birth father.
So at first I was just going to be kind of closed off and act like he didn't exist. But after like deliberation and like conversations with like a lady that was kind of giving me guidance at the time, I felt like it would be better so that Ace wouldn't have any sort of like animosity towards me or like, harboring any like ill feelings towards me, to just kind of leave the door open for if he wants to step up, he can, and I would never be the one to um be in the way of that. So like if he fumbled, it would be solely on him, and like Ace could never say, "Well, you did this and you did this." I would be like, "Look, the door was open, and I never shut it." That's how I wanted to approach it.
Okay. Um, and then after you had your oldest son, then you got the news that you're about to have the big duo, twins.
Oh yeah.
Uh, uh, what kind of emotions did you have when you found that out? Like, how did that feel when you found out that not only now are you going to be raising a black man in America, but you're about to be raising two more children at the same time along with it?
Um, since I was married and like I felt less burdened by that, because I was just like, now I have
Oh,
someone to share the load with me. So I didn't like I kind of like took that weight off my shoulder, to be honest.
yeah.
But I when I found out about the twins, I was shocked, but I wasn't shocked that I was having the twins. I was just shocked that like he was right. Like he told me we're gonna have twins. Um, and he was like, there'll probably be a boy and a girl. And so he told me this like before I was even pregnant. And then so when I went to get like, my lady checkup, and she's like, "Oh, congratulations, you're pregnant." And then I see the two babies, like I immediately like turn around like, what the heck, like looking at him like, how did you know? So I was just more so shocked that like he was right, but I wasn't really shocked that like there were two babies in there.
How was well, before we get into that, was there any kind of different emotions when you found out that you're having your daughter, having a daughter finally, versus when you found out you was having a son?
Yeah, I was really excited. At one point I thought like it was going to be two girls, and I was like, really really excited for that. I was like, oh man, we can have like matching outfits and stuff. But then um when they, said like my son was a boy first, I was like, oh man, it's probably two boys. Like I did feel kind of bummed out, and then they were like, oh, it's a girl. Now I was excited because I was like, oh wow, like now I'm gonna have like someone that I can like do girl stuff with, and like I just felt like um and I really don't want this to sound terrible because I don't mean it to be ugly or terrible, but I was like, all the things that I wish that I could have done with mom, I can do with her.
I don't think that's terrible. I think that's God giving you, I feel like for me, that's God giving you a second chance at like, your childhood, because you can live it kind of like through her, so I don't think that's terrible. And I don't think that when mom watches this,
I don't want her to be. I don't want her. I mean, it's always my goal not to. I don't like to deliberately hurt people's feelings. So, um, yeah, I
but
just
knowing our mom, I think, and the woman she is today, I think maybe you would have said that probably like a decade ago. Maybe she'd probably be like, "What the hell?"
yeah.
But knowing her now, I think that she'll be totally understanding. And she's probably just happy that she gets to be, she loves being a grandma. We know that. So, um, now let me see. I was about to ask you a question, but I don't really want to ask that question. Yeah, I tell everybody I don't come with questions, so I just kind of do it off the top of my head. Um, but you know what, I am going to ask that question. So after having all your children, and then obviously being married, um, and then you said earlier that you're gonna be unfortunately still married. I think that's the words you used. So
No, I said officially. I'm still officially,
officially, yeah,
legally. Yeah, I'm still
yeah.
officially married.
Um, the only question I'm going to ask you about that is, what's your thoughts on being married?
I feel like for women, it holds no benefit for women to be married. I feel like um marriage is literally the most degrading thing a woman can do, personally. I feel like marriage in later in life for women is that's cool. Like if you choose to be married later in life, but I do not feel like marriage is for the benefit of a woman. Like because we go into marriage like looking for that covering and that protection, and we go into marriage looking for like this partner that's we can just be like we can let our hair down with. And oftentimes with women, a lot of women, this isn't the experience for all women, but I just know so many women who go into marriage and it's um it's like a huge sacrifice. Like they have to sacrifice so many huge parts of themselves, even the parts that once attracted their partner to them. They have to sacrifice those. They have to sacrifice a lot of like hopes and dreams because when you get married and you start a family, like it's a lot of time. And I don't feel like since a lot of men don't have to do the mental labor of the house stuff and like the kids stuff, like they don't see, it's not mental labor, is not something you can see.
Yeah,
It's just there, and it's very draining. And oftentimes having to juggle like keeping your husband happy and making sure the kids are okay and keeping them happy and making sure these little people who you have to like lead and guide through life are being led and guided, while also like trying to tend to the needs of your spouse. And you know a lot of men are needy. It's just facts. Like they need that reassurance, and I get it because the world is a harsh place for a man. Like the world is a harsh place. Like there's so many like expectations, and there's so many like weights that they have to hold um in the world just because of men being in competition with men. But I feel
well,
like they
I just want to say this. So, because obviously, um, I didn't start this podcast and for to argue. So I'm not here to argue with you.
oh yeah, yeah.
Well, no, I'm not here to argue with you. I'm not here to debate your viewpoints. I'm here to give you an opportunity to tell your story and to express yourself. And for myself and for the viewers, it's just. an opportunity is for us to learn something. And some people are going to agree with you. And then for like, the opposite side, like, like for you're speaking about, you know, uh, men and women in a sense, for us as men to kind of like hear you, right? So when it comes to marriage, you said that you expressed about how much mental labor it took on a woman. What advice would you give to the husbands out there, the men out there who are thinking about being, asking a woman to marry them, or they're already in a relationship? What advice would you give to us to, you know, lighten the load?
Number one, like women don't like to have to ask because in our mind it's like you're an adult just like I am adult. You know like what needs to be done in the house. Like we need things, things need to be done. Like I shouldn't have to ask you to do something that you already know needs to be done. That's like one of the main things that I hear all the time from women. And that, it's like a common struggle for
Are you
women.
referring to like the upkeep of the house, stuff like that?
Upkeep of the house, supply, like yeah, like getting supplies in, cleaning the house, bathing kids, getting clothes out, gas in cars, scheduling appointments, things like that, things that need to be done. Just help, popping in and saying like, hey, I'm gonna handle this or I'm gonna do that, instead of saying, what do you want me to do? Because even though most women acknowledge that and they're grateful that you're even asking, like, what do you need my help with? That adds more to their mental labor because now they have to sit and think like, okay, this needs to be done, this needs to be done. Oh, I can tell him like he can do this, and you know what I'm saying, like, and that's just another task on the
Yeah.
a thousand tabs open in a woman's mind. And again, like I always say, like men, they navigate the world different than women, and so I feel like it's easy for men to not get it. They're like they to not just see, because most men, they go through their entire life with people telling them when to be here, what time you're getting off, when you can go to lunch, where you're gonna get, like that's how most men go through life. So I get it, and so I like to show grace in that, but that is something that could help. That's
Um,
like one of the hugest things. The second thing I must say is being willing to have the hard conversations. Like when you're married, man or woman, you can't be non-confrontational when you're married. When you're in any relationship, honestly, you can't be non-confrontational. Like you have to be able to confront this stuff, and you have to, as a man, sometimes if a woman is coming to you with something, more than likely, if she's getting nasty or she's like coming to you with what you all perceive as disrespect, that means that more than likely she's come to you about it before and you disrespected her feelings, so now she couldn't care less. Or you just brushed her off, so now she feels disrespected, because most of the time women are mirrors of their dudes. Not all, like, let me put that out there, like just so in most cases. And so
I think
they're
as men,
gonna
though, we as men, we we want that though. Like as men, we want our women to be mirrors of. Because as a man, I think about like when I'm in a relationship, like it's like I get frustrated when she doesn't do the things that do the things. I think we all do it really. It's like you want them to be how you are. You expect them to think how you think. You want them to expect to do the chores like you want. I'm talking about from a man's perspective.
from a
Yeah.
man's perspective, kind of
Yeah.
like,
No, because like you think about it's like like we start thinking like I don't want to put people's business out there and say people's names. That's not what I'm here to do. But I'm just thinking about just different relationships that I see around me. And it's just like from the man's perspective, they're always like, yeah, like why are you not thinking that like to do that? Why do I have to tell you to do that? And so I can see your point, when it's flip flop, but I can see where it clashes, and I definitely can see your point where you say that it's a mirror because yeah, as men, we really do want our women to kind of be like us when we're not there. You see what I'm saying? But it's just not possible. It's not feasible. It's not the way that's going to be, because I think it goes back to, you know, the difference in the mental labor. Like most of our life is, we make decisions and we have to lead. And I'm not taking anything from men because I am a man and I lead a household. But I also could see, I could sit back and I could see the mental struggle that it puts on when you're raising a child. You know, I look at both of my children's mothers. I mean, both of my, I don't like to say baby mother, baby mamas, both of the mothers of my children's. Uh, I look at, the mental capacity it takes to raise them and what they have to go through. And although I may not agree with everything that they do, the decisions they make, the stuff that they say, I might not agree with it. Like you say, I try to give them a little bit of grace because at the end of the day, you're the forefront, the first line of defense for them, first person that's going to be constantly raising them and guiding them, and I'm assuming that you're probably second guessing every decision you're making, every time you open your mouth, you give them advice, you tell them something. As a mom, you're probably second guessing. You're probably like, yeah, I just told him that, but was that the right thing to do? Was that the right thing to say? So I get it. I give him grace, but then at the same, on the flip side, as man, you're like, no, man, like we're more direct. We're just like, whether we're right or wrong, I said what I said, and but it is what it is. But women, you guys walk through life and live life with so much more emotion and compassion, because of your motherly nature, that I feel like it's just sometimes I think your nature overworks you guys more than the situations that you guys are in because you guys want to be you care so much about people's emotions and how it's going to affect them, whereas men we don't. For the most part, we just kind of like I had a on my new series I did on this podcast. I was talking about that. Like, I asked the question to these two females multiple times. Why do men have to care about a woman's feelings? I know the answer to it, but I wanted them to say it because that's how you guys operate. That's how you guys, you live your life through emotions. Your emotions regulate everything you do, right? And so, for instance, like if you're in a relationship and like how you said earlier, you disrespected my or disregarded my emotions. So now I don't give a shit about yours. And I'm just gonna not necessarily don't give a shit. I'm just gonna react this way, and I'm gonna put aside all the compassion that I had for you, and I'm just gonna tell you how you told me, and then now that takes you out of character of how you normally would be, and then that's why it becomes a whole reactive thing. It's like you're constant, both of us now are reacting versus if in the beginning, if I would have spoke to you with grace, or not with grace, spoke to you with respect and with care of just who you are as my woman or as a woman in my life that I care about, then you would have reacted back in your normal capacity, which is with grace and with empathy and stuff like that, and it would have been a free flowing thing. Would you agree?
That's what I mean when I say mirroring,
Yeah.
like that, not so much like personality and stuff, but more so like interactions. Like women really show men exactly how they interact with them. By like a woman's gonna start off treating you like well, how she normally is and everything. And when that switch changed, that's because she's now showing you how you interact with her.
Hmm.
And that's what a lot of guys can't handle. So yeah, I would say that's true. The only thing that I do have to disagree about is the fact that like women are like governed by our feelings, because most women would attest that feelings are fleeting, like feelings lie all the time. That's why I like to use the example like when you're a kid and someone does something that you don't like, you're like, I hate them, and you know you don't hate them, but in that moment you just have so many feelings bubbling up that that comes to the top. So we're fully aware that like feelings and emotions feelings, they're fleeting and they lie. So I feel like honestly, women men are more direct, like straight line direct, but I feel like and they call that being logic. It's because they're not, I feel like they're like that because they're really not fully in tune with, because they're not taught how to be in tune with their feelings. But I feel like women actually operate more so in logic versus feelings than men. I feel like that's the only way we're able to get all the stuff done, remember everything, get everyone where they need to go, make sure all these bills are paid, make sure every appointment is made and kept, and insurance is this and that. Like I feel like we operate more so in logic, but it's easier for people to say that women who aren't, who have been taught their whole lives to be in touch with their emotions and are able to freely express their emotions better than men. I feel like it's easier to say, oh yeah, women are just governed by their emotions and their feelings, when honestly we're more so governed by logic. We just know how to express our feelings better because we've had more practice at it. Whereas most men, they start crying when they're a kid. Stop acting like a girl. Stop crying like a girl. Suck it up. You know what I'm saying? And that's one thing that I made sure I didn't do with my sons. Now, if you're whining and you're like, just carrying on, and I'm asking you, what can I help you with? What can I do for you? What's going on? Tell me how you're feeling. And you're just, whining or something, I'm gonna say go take a nap. Then come talk to me again. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't ever want to be that mom, like, stop acting like a girl, like, what, you're acting like a sissy and all that. I'm not going to be that mom, because I want my sons to know that if you feel like you need to cry about something, it's okay. If you feel hurt, I want you to be able to come and verbalize that, and you can practice that on me. You can come and say, when you said this to me, or when this person did this to me, like, it made me feel this way and that way and that way. And I feel like not a lot of guys got that
No, for
growing up.
sure. As a man, we just had this conversation last night here at the house. We just had this conversation. Um, Basically, like like just like you said, as men growing up, we were from a young age, we were taught that, pretty much in a sense, our emotions were invalid. Like we're not supposed to have emotions. We're not supposed to, and if we do, we're not supposed to express them. I was telling my buddies not too long ago, I said, I got no problem crying. You know, I feel like this, that when you're a baby, your only communication, your form of communication was to cry, right? And if God felt like as men you weren't supposed to cry no more, once you were able to talk and have another form of communication, he would have removed your tear ducts. But he didn't. I was like, because he know that you're gonna need them for the rest of your life. You know, Emotions, tears, that's a form of communication, right? And since when did, having emotions, crying make you weak? Like that, all these people on social media and like YouTube and stuff like that, they're pushing this agenda that men who cry are weak. No, I don't think that that makes you weak. I think that makes you human, right? And I think that, like you said, that we as people, we have to, when we're raising our children, especially our younger men, we have to have these conversations more versus having this making the statements like you said about, oh, stop crying and stop acting like a girl. Instead of doing that, we need to be having a conversation like you said, where what's wrong with you? You can talk to me, providing a space for our children to be able to communicate their emotions. Because if you think about it, right, we always say that, if you suppress your emotions, you suppress this problems, eventually you're going to erupt, right? So what do you think that you're doing to all these men from the time of their kids? You're telling them to suppress everything they're going on from their childhood, and it's just piling up, and then you wonder why when they become young adolescents or young adults, one, they explode. They become angry. They start, doing stupid stuff. They can't even make real good decisions. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that I firmly believe? Why do you think that might be one reason why girls, in a sense, mature faster because they're allowed to express their emotions. They're more clear-headed, you know, versus boys, even though it's kid trauma, it's still trauma. and it's just compounding on top of each other, and then it becomes really bad. And I just think that if we start, as a society, telling our kids, like, especially our boys, like, hey, like, you providing that space to them to talk and letting them know that it's okay and it's normal to express your emotions, I think that we will have better men at an earlier age. Men wouldn't be reaching their peak uh, when they're pushing 40, and traumatizing all these women to 20 and 25. I mean, 20, 30, 30s. They'll have more successful relationships. People will have longer relationships and more healthier relationships. Because I think that, personally, I truly, as a man, I think that our fathers and our mothers uh, play a big role in, a lot of the issues that we have with the men in our lives, I mean, men in society today, especially fathers, is a lot of that comes from fathers. You don't really hear too many moms like, I was talking to a mom last night about this, you know, I don't recall her too many times calling me a sissy for crying. You know, I don't really, truthfully, I don't really recall, our stepdad doing it too much either. I think that's probably why, I'm okay with expressing my emotions. Um, and I think when I think about all the boys in our family, the our two brothers as well, even though they don't cry that often, they have no problems crying, or expressing their emotions. Nobody in our family does, I don't think, so kudos to them for that part, for when raising us, they provide that space for us. So
Can I make one point that I thought about while you
no,
were
you can't make no
talking?
points on this podcast. I'm joking.
So I was thinking, like how when I made that comment, which you hear all the time, like stop acting like a girl and all that stuff. I feel like a lot of the trauma that men hold and this anger that they hold towards girls comes from that those kind of statements, like stop acting like a girl, to stop, like as if, it starts to paint girls and women in this like negative light, and they have this subconscious like programming going on to see like, oh, when you see a woman start crying, instead of it being like an emotional connection, like, oh my goodness, like they get annoyed by it, and it's because probably from all these years of being told like stop acting like a girl, stop crying like a girl and stuff, so they see it as this troublesome thing versus seeing it as a space to have like for them to be able to tap into some different emotions to be able to show up for someone else. And I was thinking about that while you were talking, because a lot of guys don't know how to hold that space, and it's because they've never been taught it. And then on top of that, like they probably see those emotions as like something that they like envy, and that brings them annoyance, that why are you even expressing those kind of emotions to me type of
And
feelings.
the irony of this is also this: if you think about it, especially somebody who has, both of us have daughters and sons, right? You think about when they're babies, uh, the girls didn't really cry and whine that much. It was the boys. I look at my son, and like right now, my son Kylan, like, I love him, but he whines a lot. Boys cry. I think baby boys cry more than girls. You know, uh,
Kid kid boys cry more than girls, honestly.
yeah.
Like Jolie and Eve, they both cry less than the boys, like and it's, and I'm like, I'm always looking like, are they like that because of me? Like where I've just like um held so many emotions or kept myself so like put together for them for their sake that now they feel like they have to be that way. But when I talk to them, well, not really Eve since she's young, but when I talked to Jolie, she was just like, no, like when I feel like I have to cry, I cry. When I feel like I'm upset, I express it. She was like, I don't, keep it in. I just don't feel like it. She was like, I don't know what their problem is, but like they cry. I mean, they'll burst out crying because they have to sweep, or like they're tired or like they cry a lot, and you would think that it kind of goes away, and it doesn't. Like, it doesn't.
Maybe it's just maybe it's because the world hasn't been so harsh to them yet.
Yeah, I think once they hit like being teenagers, then it's kind of like, all right, I need to get my life together, stop all this, like, but yeah, all of my kids, I have two teenage sons, and I mean, all the way up to at least 12, we were still getting tears over certain things, and I'm like, although I welcome this, like,
Yeah, chill out a little bit.
like y'all are doing a lot, but I try unless they're being ridiculous when you when you're around your kids, you can tell like they're just being ridiculous right now. They're just crying just to be making a scene. Like after I hold space for them for what they're really feeling, and then I see that they're just being ridiculous, I'm like, it doesn't matter if all my children, boys or girls, wrap it up. Like, but I communicate with them so much and so well that I kind of like I can tell like, okay, you're just egging it on now. You're just making a scene because you just want to get it out and then get over it. Like, but for the most part, I try to let them have their moments because a lot of us were told to, boys and girls, more so boys, but a lot of us were told like, you know, you shouldn't have any feelings. Your life is great. You're a kid, and it's like, no, my feelings were hurt. Like this
Yeah.
bothered me, and a lot of us were just told like, you shouldn't have feelings about this. You shouldn't. You have nothing to worry about. And I'm like, we have 1,000 things that we could actually be worried about, especially how we grew up and some of the struggles we went through. It's like, so us being told that, I'm looking like, are you not living in the same reality I'm living in? I have legitimate reasons to be feeling the way I feel. So, yeah,
So as a mom of seven, how do you find time to balance for self-care?
I have to wake up crazy early in the morning, literally. If I don't, then I'm screwed. So I usually get up like 4:45.
And when I'm
Um,
saying self-care, I'm talking about like for like your mental care.
yeah, I have to get up early in the morning. That's the only time where I'll be unbothered, where I'm actually by myself, and it's only sometimes it's like only 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes, depending on if I just can't fathom getting up at 4:45. But I do try to make it like once a week. I don't do it, but I do try to make it an everyday thing where I get up before anybody else so I can like sit with myself, see how I'm feeling, write out how I'm feeling, talk to God. Usually I like do like reading my books because I do. That's one thing about parenting that I miss, being able to just have the freedom to just like sit and read a book without someone being like, "Hey, mom," or so I do like try to read at least like 5 pages if I can. A lot of times I can't, but before a kid wakes up, but I try to like squeeze in that time. Even if I wake up late and it's like 5:30 and I'm like, okay, the kids really need to get up, I'll just say, okay, I'll get them up at 5:45. I need at least 15 minutes where
How important would you say that it is for you to have that time?
it's vital. Like on days when I don't have it, I feel like it all of my insides feel different. It's not that I would say I'm on edge or like I'm falling apart at the seams. I'm not. I'm still getting through the day or whatever, but I just feel like um I guess disconnected from myself. So like if there's a day where I don't get to have that time, I feel like I shorted myself out of something, or I feel like I'm not all the way put together. It's kind of like I feel like I'm going out the house with my hair undone or something. Like I feel like something vital is missing. Because since 2023, I've been heavily reliant on that to to be able to get everything done. And when you have 7 children, like it's a lot of stuff to get done all the time. Like if somebody has to be here doing this, doing that, and then I'm working and I have my own stuff. So if I miss that time, I can feel it. Like I just feel uneasy. Um so I would suggest to any parent, solo parenting, like find the time that works best for you. Not everybody can get up at the butt crack of dawn. I hate it, but I'm like, my kids are night owls, so if I were to like have lights on at night past their bedtime, or if I'm moving around too much past their bedtime, somebody's gonna be up. And somebody's gonna try to say, Mom, can I watch this? Or can I have a snack? Or, so I said, how important is it to you? How important is checking in with yourself every day? And I had to just say, bite the bullet, get up early, you know, like at least
Now,
you'll be tired.
now as a mom, specifically of 7 children, what's one thing like misconception you had like growing up, in a family of 7, like that you had of mom? Like one thing that you thought of mom growing up, and then it's like now that you're a mom of 7, you're like you think back on it, and you're like, dang, like I was wrong, or like, dang, like, big shout out to mom for doing this because it's something that I struggle with or whatever.
I used to find that mom was detached often. Like she was there and like she would be at our sporting events and come to our school stuff. And she would pop up at the school and like she was in the house, but sometimes I would feel like she was detached. Like I talk to my kids all the time about like how, we could knock on the door and like stand outside the door to talk to her. Like we could come in the room, but like we couldn't sit on the bed. Just different things. And I was like, she was more so detached. Like she would just like withdraw into her shows and stuff. And when I was a kid, I used to be like, man, did she not like us or something? And because of course when you're a kid you have the most irrational thoughts, but now being a mom, like in her situation, I realized that it's not that she was like detaching to be away from us. She was detaching for herself because while she's our mom, she's also dealing with heartbreak. She's also dealing with dreams shattered and having to heal from the lies she was sold, and she's having to navigate who she is outside of just being a mom, and she's having to think about um all these new dreams and goals that she wants to like um embark on and how to do it. And now that like I'm in that kind of situation, like I try to make sure that I'm not so detached, but when I find myself being detached, I'm like, I get it. I understand. It's like, it's not that you're not available I mean, my kids may say like, dang, mom sometimes is like spaced out. She's a little unavailable. Like when I'm cooking, sometimes I'm just like literally in my head, like, okay, Jaquetta, you have to process this so you can move past it. So then that way you can take this step so you can make that move so you can do this. You know what I'm saying? And that when you're that far in your head and you're trying to heal from all this stuff, it does make you seem detached. So I do now understand more so, and I'm able to like give mom more grace and not just think like she just didn't want to have anything to do with us, like past outside the house or something. I understand it now. I really do. And then when you embark on creating a family and you're um going into that, especially as a woman, you're going into that thinking that you're going to have this covering and you're going to have this like person who's always there to help you, and that you all are going to like have be this like beautiful love story for your children, and you're going to have all this stuff, and then all that falls to pieces, that's traumatizing and it really F's with your mind. And now that like I've experienced that, I can understand like the days when mom just seemed irritated or the days when mom just seemed like exacerbated with us. It wasn't really us. I mean, of course it was. It's a lot of when it's a lot of kids,
Yeah.
it's a lot to do. So like it is us, but it's not the foundation of it isn't us.
Yeah.
It's like mourning that loss and just being so hurt and heartbroken, trying to navigate that while you're still having to be all things to seven people, not and
At once
outside
too.
of, yeah, at one time outside of yourself, and then trying to figure out the pieces of yourself to keep everything together. And so going through that, I can really just I can understand things more, because when you don't go through something like that, it doesn't even cross your mind. But when you go through it and you're like, oh, okay, all right, I get it. Yeah.
So I got two questions left for you. The first one's gonna be a three-part question. Um, s- so basically, well, actually, two-part question. So basically, one, what kind of advice would you give to a mom who's struggling with motherhood, struggling with finding, like I said earlier, finding that time for self-care, finding that time for, to find peace and time for herself, but also just overall just struggling with just motherhood, you know. And then also, what advice would you give to fathers to be a support system to mothers? Um, because as fathers, sometimes we don't want to admit it, but we know that when it comes to raising children, you guys carry the more of the load. I don't care what any fathers out there say. I don't care if you're in the house with them 24/7. Unless you're a single father, the mother is carrying the majority of the load of raising the children. What kind of advice would you say give to fathers to be a support system to mothers?
The advice I would give to mothers would be to set up a schedule. Like when you set up a system that works for your family dynamic, whether you're married, um, or you're single, you need to have like some sort of system in place, because systems just make things work better. Like if everybody knows what they have to do, what time, it makes it easier to enforce those time frames and get stuff done, and that'll free you up more time. And then as far as like being able to mentally handle everything that you have to handle, I'm a big cheerleader and advocate for setting aside some time for yourself, even if it is like 10-15 minutes. And it could be during snack time. If you get have snack time for your kids, you just say, while you all are having your snack, give mommy 10 minutes and do what you need to do. But I feel like when your children are awake and you do that, you can't really fully give yourself the time you need to give. So I suggest either getting up before your children for the time, like I do, or when they go to sleep, giving yourself that time. And it doesn't have to be long, honestly. Um, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, depending on what you got to get done. I mean, I'm trying to squeeze in a bunch of stuff, so I try to give myself 45 minutes so I can stretch and pray and read the Bible and journal and read. It's a lot that I'm trying to do before they get up. So if that's not your jam and you only need 15 minutes, so you could just breathe or just lay still and not hear anything, do it. But I really would suggest, so you can think clearly and only focus on yourself, do it before they're up or after they've gone to sleep. Um, I would say learn to give yourself grace. This is for moms and dads. You have to learn to give yourself grace. You don't know who your child is going to be when you're carrying them and when they're birthed. Like you don't know anything about them. You're learning them just as much as they're learning you. And so you have to give yourself grace that you're not always going to get it right. Like no parent is always getting it right. Social media has people thinking that these people live these perfect, pretty, put together lives all the time, and that's just not the truth. Like, you have to give yourself grace to know that um it's not always going to be perfection, and what you're seeing are only people's highlight reels. So if you say something to your child and you know it's wrong, go and apologize. You can apologize to your children. I do it all the time. Like, but you have to learn to give yourself grace, because beating yourself up is not going to get you anywhere with your children or with yourself. And you're just going to start this negative cycle of messing up.
And what advice would you give to fathers to be a support system to mothers?
Get hands on. I feel like a lot of dads see moms doing things and they feel like they don't know where they can get in, like where they can fit in, and so they do nothing, or they just like pop in when they've heard the mom like repeat herself too many times, and they come in trying to discipline. At that point, the mom's mad, the kids are mad, because she's like, you're disciplining. Like, where were you? And they should have been doing this with you in the first place. I feel like more dudes need to be more hands on. Like, kids are a big undertaking, and to expect for a woman to have that undertaking alone, and all that you are sharing with that child are the good moments and the financial responsibility, is asinine. I feel like you have to, it just, that's your child too. The same way this mother is learning that child, you have to learn that child too. And you can only do it by being active, hands on, in the mix. Like, you have to, yeah, she may be cooking. You could be, prepping the clothes for the next day for, everyone to run out. She may be doing laundry and you could do homework. Like, just sharing the load without her having to tell you, like, you're her child, what to do. Because a lot of guys, and I feel like they get intimidated because, again, we were all raised in this like patriarchy where, like, men were kind of like hands off. They didn't even get to watch women give birth way back in the day. They just came out and told them, like, you have a son, you have a daughter, congratulations, a pat on the back. And so now that times have changed, men now have to start getting on that wave of change as well, and being more hands on, because
I like that you said
moms.
that, not to cut you off, but I like that you brought that up about how fathers back in the day didn't even get to see childbirth. I think that doing that, it kind of caused a separation between the fathers and the mothers and the child. Because like even to the aspect I look at now, like now with this new age thing, like whenever uh you know my son's mother was pregnant with him, and she had his baby shower. I was like, she was like, "You're gonna be there," and I was like, "No, that's for girls." I said, "That's for the moms." I said, "That's not for the dads because that's the way that the old way of thinking." And then now it's like, and then I look at the with like round two now. Um, I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna be there. I'm excited for it because I see that by doing that, it makes me a part of it from the beginning. I think that not being a part of it causes separation, right? And I just even like, like I think about like not to throw him under the bus, but like even like her dad, like he was like, I'm not gonna be there because I don't think he went to either one of the baby showers because he's old school and he's like that's it's not for men, and so and then some of the dads that were there, I think one of the other women who was there, her husband came and he was like, I think he was telling mom, he was like, yeah, like like this is all weird because I've never been to a baby shower before because that's for girls. And I think that is one thing that's good about today's society is that they're normalizing that. Somebody's seen that and they seen that no, like we need to make this as a whole unit, and that's what kind of connects us all, intertwines us all, from the beginning, before the child even becomes here. You're a part of this. It's because a lot of times as men, I'll say this in my closing is that um, as men, we feel like that women don't incorporate us until it benefits them, right? But I don't think that women do that on purpose. I think that society does that, and then the women are trying to they're trying to get us involved, right? But because of the way society has, trained us mentally to think like, as men, like, oh yeah, like I said, like not to go to baby showers, like in the past, we weren't allowed to be in the room. It was just all about the woman and the child. And then so whenever, stuff happened in life, then the woman's like, oh, you should have been there. But subconsciously in our mind, we're thinking like, well, we're not. Like we're just the father. We're just there for like how you were saying earlier, like, we're not hands on until it's time to discipline because that's all we're ever told our role is to take care of financially and to discipline, protect and provide.
So can I make a point? And I guess
Yeah.
that's where the big contention between men and women come, and that that huge switch happens in relationships when you have children. Is men are looking at it from that viewpoint, like, well, you didn't tell me to be there, or I didn't know I was supposed to be there. And us women, we're thinking, this is your child. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Why would you just automatically exclude yourself from something that came from you? And so we feel like we shouldn't have to tell you, whereas you guys are like, tell me, I'll be there if you tell
Yeah.
me. And so I feel like that's where that big contention comes, because the moment a woman goes from being just either a single woman or a married woman, just from being just a wife or a girlfriend or fiance, to and the moment that baby comes through the threshold and comes into this world, something inside of women immediately change, and it's unexplainable. And that's why so many women say that they don't know who they are anymore, because that change happens and you can't explain it, and you do lose, like, it's like you come to that realization as soon as you hear that baby crying, as soon as you like feel that last release and you hear that baby crying, you come to the realization of the woman I once was is no longer.
Yeah.
And we
That doesn't
since
happen for
we
men though.
yeah, since we come to that right then at that moment, because again, we've taken this, little seed and grown it into entire person. We've given them our fluid, our blood. We've sacrificed. We've come near death to bring them into this world. We already have that immediate connection, and then that switch just flicks on for us immediately. Whereas dudes are kind of like hovering bystanders, because they can't feel that. Yeah, you can feel a kick from the outside, but you can't feel it from the inside. Yeah, you can feel a roll from the outside, but you can't feel, like, it's different. You feel when you feel everything from the inside, you already have this like innate feelings that just come, and thoughts and ways of being, whereas men don't have that. So I find that since they were like helicopters circling around the pregnant mom throughout pregnancy, they have a hard time struggling with finding how to land that helicopter so they can now be like in tune and hands on. And I guess in relationships, women have to learn how to be less frustrated with men, uh, with having to guide men at the beginning and tell them what they need, and giving men the opportunity to, show up. I feel like women have to do a better job with that, but then I feel like men also have to do a better job with being consistent, showing up consistently, and then being able to get to the point where they're so hands on that the woman trusts without a doubt that, like, she can let her guard down, and just be a woman, so she doesn't become so hardened with the man, like, why aren't you doing this, why aren't. And I feel like when men start to show up more, women can start to flourish more as women and help them to be better dads. But when, you know men aren't showing up, the woman's angry. She's exhausted. She like I don't know the last time I've slept all the way through the night since I've been a mom from the twins down. After Ace, I used to he was the perfect child. God knew what he was doing because if any of the other ones had been first, I would that would have been it. But Ace was just so delightful that and easy that I used to get full night's sleep. But from the twins down, I don't recall the last time I had a full night's sleep like in the same house as them. I don't
So,
recall it.
so basically, you would say that for women, because you're going through, developing a child and childbirth and stuff like that internally, and we're going through the whole process externally, that it's easier for you guys to extrapolate, you know, from one to the other, from pre-birth to post-birth versus us, we have to, it's like a learned behavior. You is kind of like,
It happens, yeah.
yeah. So,
And I
okay.
feel like we as women, because I had to come to this realization because, um, like my children's dad, like I don't count the twins because he was injured. So that was completely different. But like when the fourth child down came, I like he would get excited about like kicks and stuff. But then like whenever the baby came, it was just like, oh, that's all on you. Like, that's like how I felt. I don't know if that's how he felt, but like that's just how I felt because it was like, why do I have to tell you? Like you had a dad. You know what I'm saying? You know what a dad looks like. Like this is how I'm thinking. But then as time went on, I had to learn like he saw what a dad looks like as a kid, but that's not the same as experiencing being a dad and knowing what to do and knowing how to maneuver and where to maneuver and what to say and when to step in and when not to because you of course when you're like parenting you don't want to like step on the other person's toes and like overstep what they say and stuff like that because you want to seem united. And so I started giving him grace because I'm like, you know, I've never been a dad, so I can't tell him how to be a dad, and I can't. So I don't. I need to understand that he needs to be able to learn how to do this and I tell him what I need, and I have to give him the space to do it. I can't just say, "Oh my God!" Like, why? I don't even want to tell you. Like, I can just do it myself. And the time it took for me to tell you, I could already had it done, which is the attitude a lot of women take. And so, um, I had to learn that.
Can I say
But
something too? In defense for guys, right? I think also too for fathers is kind of scary. Um, and what I mean by that is you might not even thought about this, but for as a father, you think about like just the all the things that you're able to do as a mother that father is just fearful. Like for instance, one main thing is like I expressed to my son's mother like with just bathing him, right? It's fearful because we live in a day like in a society where you know people will manipulate things and they'll make it especially like oh man like if I had a young daughter right now it'd be horrible because it's like you know oh yeah well there's so many I don't know the word I'm looking for moms and family members out there and friends that are just kind of like contort things and even plant seeds into their kids' head that oh well when your dad was giving you a bath did he do this to you? Did he touch you? Or because they're being spiteful and they're going through like a breakup or whatever the case may be, and they're trying to like, plant these seeds to like make the dad look bad, and I mean maybe we shouldn't think about that, but I know for me, like those kind of thoughts process through my head. It's like I don't want to be bathing my son and then, or my child, and then now that's, flipped into, something totally different because Very seldom, very, very, very seldom do you hear like somebody say, oh, this mom, you know, touched their child inappropriately while giving a bath, but so often, changing a diaper or, helping a daughter get dressed or, something like that, it can be, flipped into something different. So it's just fearful raising a child as a father because anything that we do can be turned into something different. So I think that, I think I speak for most fathers that that is a small part of why we kind of like are like, tell me what you need help with. And like, I even told her, I was like, look, still to this day, I'll say this on camera and people are going to judge me. I don't care. But still to this day, like my son, I've never given him a bath. I'll change his diapers all the time. I don't give him a bath, because one, I don't want him subconsciously thinking that it's okay for boys to be touching other boys and giving each other boys baths, for one. For two, it's just like I just said, like, um, no one's gonna ever say, that, use that against me. I've went through, I'm not gonna speak about that no more on camera, but I've went through such nothing on that, nothing to that extent for the viewers out there, but I went through, situations with my kids where I'm arguing back and forth and so like that, and I just don't want that part to ever be something that I argue about. Never again, I'll say it on camera for you viewers, I've never had that happen to me where someone accused me of anything like that, and I don't want it to ever happen, so I protect myself to where that'll never be a situation. But I think that fathers subconsciously they deal with that, they battle with that part too, and I've had conversations with fathers where they say that they're like, like, especially fathers who have daughters, like, hey, like, it's my daughter, but her mom can bathe her. Her mom can do that. It just protects her, protects, not me, but protects the father's freedom, his name, all that kind of stuff. Because there's some malicious people out there that will say some wild stuff that are just untrue and people will believe. You never have to, it's weird, you don't have to make someone believe a false narrative as much as you do believe the truth. You tell somebody a lie and something that's just outlandishly crazy, people will navigate to it and believe it quickly. But you tell them like, oh yeah, this person's a good father, or they're good this or that, and it's like you almost got to kind of like drill it into them for them to believe it. But they'll believe the negativity so fast, so it's just kind of like I feel like, as fathers, like that's one thing that we do battle with. But in the closing, what do you think about a
Can I make
podcast?
one last point to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like, and I'm not a man, but I like to watch people and observe things. And I feel like another thing of fear for dudes is, again, it goes back to not having that space to process emotions, is that fear kind of like builds into anxiety of, now I have to care for this person. I have to care for one more person. I gotta like budget them in and build this, like it's like these big like, even though you're looking at it as, oh, this is just this baby coming into the world, they're looking at it as like they're gonna need college and a car, and they're going, you know what I'm saying? So they're looking at things, we're looking at like, oh, they
Right
need
now,
diapers and they need food and da, 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 and men are looking at, when they leave out of the house, are we making sure they're fully protected? Are they, like, I feel like the fears that they have that kind of keep them detached, kind of like how I spoke about women being detached when they're dealing with their emotions and stuff. I feel like what keeps dudes detached is like that fear of them thinking of their master plan to make sure that all of this lifetime is taken care of and they're leaving all this greatness for their children. And
would you say that's a good thing
like
or a bad thing though?
i I feel like um same as with the women, although it's a good thing, on the same flip side, to some people it is a bad thing. Like, I feel like it can be, it's very commendable. It's it's great that they're even thinking about it, because some dudes are just like, that ain't my baby, F y'all. You know what I'm saying? And then there's the guys that are like, I need to do this and do this and this, and they get so caught up in their head that like right now is slipping by. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
And I feel with me going through so much, and then again, I watch people, and I listen to people. I like to think about situations wholly, and I don't like to just think that people at their core are just horrible people and they just do all these, they just don't want to help. They just don't. I don't feel that way. I feel like everyone has different bandwidths in life, and you have to learn how those people operate within their bandwidths. And I feel like when it comes to relationships and parenting and stuff, like dudes, they have a completely different set of fears and reservations and things that kind of make them more detached. Um, but I mean, I feel like there's always room for growth, and I always like to commend people when they do make that growth. Like I had told you that I noticed that you've been making steps toward growth, that I'm proud of that. Like even with my kid's father, like um he's trying to be more consistent, and like, well, he is more consistent and he's more uh hands on, and that's all women really want anyway. They just want someone that's going to be hands on, and that they don't feel like they're carrying the load alone. Even if they are, they don't want to feel like it.
Well, look, I appreciate you coming on. I ain't gonna lie, I said it earlier before we started, but I was nervous about interviewing my older sister. It's a little different dynamic for me. Um, but in the closing, what do you think about the podcast, and would you come back?
I think that it's great. I think that it's great to hear different stories, because you never know, like, what you're going to connect with, or how hearing something from someone else can heal something in you, or give you a new perspective to view things with. And so I do appreciate that you went ahead and started it, because it may seem like on some days you may feel like, oh, maybe I'm not really reaching many people, or but the people that come on, they get to unburden themselves some, and then the people who watch get to see different perspectives and learn something new. So I do like, I like it. And I was nervous, I'm not gonna lie, not to be interviewed so much, but more so of like, I didn't want to ugly cry online. And then I like to be prepared and not having any questions to like rehearse stuff. I was just like, oh, that. But I now that we've done it this way, I do appreciate, because it's more candid, and then you can get uh non-political answers. You can just
Get
get
the
straight from the
truth.
heart answers,
Yeah.
straight from the heart, straight off the dome answers. And oftentimes those are just what people need to hear.
They're more relatable.
Yeah, absolutely. I would come back. I mean, I feel like there's so much to touch on in life that I've gone through, that I've experienced, that could help other people. I don't know if you allow it, but I do want to put a shameless plug. Going back to the journals, yes, I created some journals. They are online on Amazon.
How do they get them?
Hopefully, um, they're on Amazon. I have a link. I'll give it to you if you want to post it, and they can just pick which one speaks to them. Some of them are prompted. I think I have three that are non-prompted, so they're the free write journals. But I have something for everybody. People that like art. I have an art journal where you can draw, you can paint, you can color. I made some coloring sheets in there. I have um, reflection pages, because, like we said, sometimes you can write stuff in there and you're leaving out big holes and you're not being truthful with yourself. And in my journals, I make it where you have to face yourself. You have to reflect on that. You got to come back and look at it, and you got to, in order to move on to the next prompt. And so I found that I made these for me, and they've helped me tremendously, going through one of the toughest times in my life, like dealing with suicidal thoughts and everything in postpartum, and feeling like I didn't want to be here, and mothering seven children by myself. and they helped me. So hopefully they can help somebody else. But yeah.
All right. Well, like I said, I appreciate you coming on, and maybe one day I can get you to come on. One of the new panels that I started, the new series I started, where we talk about, I don't like to say debate, where we talk about men and women dynamics and relationships. The episode one of that just came out, and so it's a new series I'm gonna be doing once a month, right now, and the panel will be different each time from either whether two guys and one girl, two girls, one guy, two girls, two guys, whatever, however I can get it done. It's like I said, it's just us coming together and we just giving our different perspectives, trying to get an understanding, with hopes that we can have better relationships, and we can coexist as men and women, more functionally and better. So, like I said, I always say the premise of my podcast is just to get people to inspire, encourage, and motivate others to keep going on, and just to educate, to give people a different perspective. So, with that said, for all you guys who are watching the podcast, and listening, thank you for watching and supporting. If you like her story, I enjoyed her story, drop a green heart at the bottom in the comments, and follow us on Instagram at Minority Emotions underscore VDP. Follow us on TikTok at Minority Emotions the podcast. And if you'd love to come on and share your story, shoot us an email to Minority Emotions the podcast at gmail.com. And you guys be blessed. We out of here. Peace.